way, I mean, it's kind of the only way I can think of to celebrate World Refugee Day in a country, you know, in the state that it's in now, is actually to be galvanising the fight back against the racist onslaught, you know, in a country where our Prime Minister and Home Secretary are trying to ship refugees to Rwanda, a place where people are already fleeing as refugees themselves, to offshore detention centres. And we've heard from Pinar and Asif about, you know, the news that I heard today, the next horrible, inhumane idea to tag refugees on arrival. And I actually heard that just in that horrible, vindictive spirit of Priti Patel, she's announced that the very people that she wants to be the first ones to be trialled as the people to be tagged are those who have already ridden through the horror of being on that flight to Rwanda that was due to take off and were finally at the last minute removed. And after that trauma, they're going to be the first ones to actually have to be the pilot system for this horrible tagging idea. It kind of can start to feel like a bad dream or like a horrible parody of a nasty racist government, and sometimes I think it's hard to comprehend the cruelty of all of it, and how do we actually stand up against such a whole-scale attack on migrants and refugees in every single area across the board. And what I think that we have to do, and what we've already heard so brilliantly from speakers, is that we have to keep going back to our victories. However small, we have to keep shouting about our victories and learning from them, because we know that they inspire people, and in the case of Ken Muir Street, they can actually snowball, because, you know, through the last couple of months we've seen that, we've seen the echoes of Ken Muir Street start to ripple across Britain. You know, we heard from Amar in detail about the amazing struggle that happened that day in Ken Muir Street that most of us were part of and that we're all so proud of. And it's true to say that the whole world was watching, and we actually experienced that within Stand Up to Racism, that people were moving to Glasgow from the other side of the world and saying, coming to find us, saying we want to join because we saw on TV from Australia or wherever what happened in Ken Muir Street, and we want to be part of that movement. It really did shape the world, because I think that this kind of racist onslaught is happening all over. It's happening in the US, it's happening in Australia, it's happening across Europe. You know, in France, just now seeing the very alarming rise of Le Pen, and we need to see this kind of fight back linked up across the world. Yeah, and now, so like I said, we've seen them happening in Edinburgh earlier, now in Peckham, people coming together to do exactly the same thing that we did in Ken Muir Street a year ago. When Home Office vans appear in their areas, they are all coming out on the streets to see them off. We know that the pressure from below, combined with legal challenges right up to the last hour, was what ensured that not a single person was shipped away to offshore detention in Rwanda this time. But like everybody said, that's not at all the end of the fight. They're going to try tooth and nail to make sure that they can get that horrible policy through. But we know that we have won a victory last week in seeing that plane didn't take off. And the horrible policy of pushbacks that Liz spoke about, and that the PCS union with others have been amazing in mounting a legal challenge and winning, and to say that the government can't enforce that dinghies of refugees coming over here, instead of being rescued, would be pushed back, and which would, of course, cause more deaths, directly cause more deaths and drowning in the channel. But that was beaten. That was beaten by a united attack from our side. So what does that shows us, and that we have to keep saying it, that this government is not unstoppable in any way. They're actually pretty weak right now with the Nationality and Borders Act, although it's gotten pushed through. It's going to get pushed through into law. We've seen on so many fronts that they've actually been defeated, not just by lawyers, but by people on the street saying, no way, we're not going to let this might be able to become the law, but we're not going to let you enact this in practice. And that's what we have to keep doing. We need to generalise it. We want to build a mass united movement against racism that can spread to every town and city in the UK, just like we saw with the Black Lives Matter movement. Because most people in this country support refugee rights. Most people remember the heartbreaking image of Alan Kurdi washed up on that beach, and most people said, you know, not in my name, we're not going to let this happen. And actually, I think back then there was a statistic that a third of people in this country had actually done something practical themselves to support refugees. You know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of people that think this government, they don't agree with what this government's doing around refugees, we need to give an expression to that majority and get them out onto the streets. And I think it's brilliant we've got someone from the trade union movement here to show the part that the trade unions can play, because that's also part of what we're trying to do, is make sure that the organised working class is at the centre of that struggle. So it's like the people power of Ken Hill Street, backed up by the huge weight of the trade union movement that actually are the workers that have the power to say, like, we're not going to implement this, we're the ones that you're asking to do the dirty work, and no, we're not going to do it. And to say that anybody who wants to oppose racism and who wants to welcome refugees is welcome in our fight. It doesn't matter if I disagree with you on a million other things. If you want to fight racism and if you want to welcome refugees to this country, then join us so that we can have the broadest possible movement. You know, the Nationality and Borders Act says that threatens 6 million people in this country, that they could potentially have their citizenship stripped, and that's more than half of British Asians. I think that the government's bitten off more than it can chew, is attacking too many of us at once, and actually if we build a united fight back, we could see millions of people involved. You know, it's trying to say that there's good refugees and bad refugees, that there's legal and illegal routes here. We've heard that actually only 1% have 1% of refugees that come here have any kind of access to the legal routes. It's just an impossibility. You know, and so yeah, I think that what I'm trying to say is that we can defeat them in practice, we can stop them from being able to implement these policies. It's already happened with Rwanda. We need to keep up the pressure now, because actually, if we defeat them on that, I think that can be the kind of the thin end of the wedge that can crack apart this horrible racist government that's already on its last legs with all this stuff over Partygate. They're ripping themselves apart. And I think while they're in that turmoil is the time we need to strike while the iron's hot and actually put the boot in, kick them while they're down, and we could get rid of this horrible racist government and start to turn back the tide against racism.